friends, my name is Sarah. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making 3 of our family's favourite meals, and there's a very good reason why I'm doing that this particular week. I recorded this video a couple of weeks ago when I'd been ill for several days. I lost my voice, I was just feeling generally under the weather and pretty miserable. So I needed to have some meals that I could make really easily, that I knew off by heart and that I knew my family would enjoy without any moaning. Now my children are generally pretty good at eating everything that I give them, but there's always someone around the table that prefers one meal over another or doesn't like a particular vegetable in one of the meals. And there's always somebody that's not 100% happy with what I've made. It doesn't matter, they eat it anyway, they're really good like that. But this week I just couldn't be dealing with any unhappiness, so I was making our favourite dinners. Now one of the things that we really enjoy eating is curry, and we also really like food that has a slightly sweet component. So this curry is really our favourite. It's a recipe that my mother-in-law showed me and I've been making it regularly ever since. We call it Chicken Madras or Chicken Madras. I'm pretty sure it's not an authentic recipe, but we really enjoy it nonetheless. So it's basically chicken in a coconut milk sauce with curry and a few vegetables and some fruit. So I'm going to explain what I'm doing here. I fried off some chicken. I use either chicken breasts or skinless and boneless chicken thighs, depending on what I have to hand. I just brown them slightly, take them out of the pot, and then add in plenty of onions. And you want to soften those onions really well because the sauce isn't going to cook for very long, so the onions do need to be quite soft before you add any of the liquid. You then want to add some carrots, and here it is really important to cut your carrots quite small, otherwise it's just not going to be very pleasant. They won't cook all the way through, and I like having them small like this. They almost become part of the sauce. So I add those to the onions and let them soften together for a little while. When they're soft, I'm going to add some garlic, and we love eating garlic, so I'm going to be adding plenty. And then I will add the chicken back to the pot along with the curry. So today I didn't have my normal curry powder. I need to buy some more. So I did a mixture of what I had to hand, some garam masala, a little bit of curry powder that I had in the back of my cupboard, and some turmeric to give it a really nice yellow colour. You do want to make sure that you check the ingredients of your curry powder, because I was surprised to find that mine had potato starch in it, which is a bit of an issue for us because one of my sons does deal with potato allergy. So do be careful about that. And when you find one that you like, just stick with that curry powder. We like to have it quite mild, so I can add some spice, some chilli if I want to later. We usually tend to add a little bit of chilli sauce to our plate for those of us that like to have it a little bit hot. Now to finish off the sauce, I'm mashing up some banana, and then I'm going to add the liquid to the meat and the vegetables. So I'm adding coconut milk. I'm adding a whole litre. This is my absolute favourite brand of coconut milk. It's so silky and smooth, but there are no additives in it at all. I love it. So 1 litre of coconut milk, a whole tin of chopped pineapple, and then I mashed up 3 bananas and I'm adding that to the sauce too. I'm going to leave this to simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes until everything is cooked through and nice and tender. Make sure you add salt and pepper to taste. You can thin out the sauce with a little bit of broth like I'm doing here, but you don't have to if you prefer to have a thicker sauce. This meal is delicious, served over plain rice. I don't even salt the rice usually. I just make it plain, and it is so good. Now, we eat rice pretty much every day of the week. As I said in last week's video, I have 2 sons that have multiple food allergies, which, while they're getting better, are still present. So we don't have pasta, we don't have potato very often, and we end up eating a lot of rice. So I have come up with my favourite way of making rice. I do it in a rice cooker, but you can also do it in a saucepan. I'm making a lot of rice here because I wanted to have enough food for several days. In fact, I'm making 2 of the meals in one afternoon so that I didn't have to cook for a couple of days. So I did 10 little cups of rice here. They're not actual cups, it's a little container that came with the rice cooker. So it's about 2/3 of a cup, I think. So I did 10 of those. It's the most I've ever done in this rice cooker, but it did work, so I will be able to do it again. So I put my rice in the rice cooker, and then I'm going to rinse it 3 times with cold water. Now, this is a really important step to get rid of some of the starch, and you can see how cloudy the water is coming off that rice. So I never skip this step anymore. It makes such a difference when you're making rice. And once the rice is well rinsed, you're going to add the water. So I always do equal volumes of rice to water. So here I've got 10 of my little pots of rice, and I'm going to be adding 10 pots of water. You can add a little bit of salt if you like. I often don't add the salt because I find that the sauce that we have with it is already full of flavour. So it's up to you. Once you've added the water to the rice, you put the container into the rice cooker and then simply switch it on, and it'll do its thing all by itself. And once it's cooked, it'll keep it warm until you're ready to eat. Now, I've always been quite unsure about keeping rice, making it in advance and keeping it for several days, but from what I understand, as long as you cool it down quickly, you can keep it in the fridge for 3 days maybe, and it's absolutely safe. So I've made enough rice here for 4 meals for our family, and that will keep us going for a couple of days. Now, this is the end result. This curry was delicious. So much fruit in there, giving lots of juice and sweetness to the meat and the coconut sauce. It was absolutely delicious. Now I'm on to the next meal. So this is caramelised pork, and I have a recipe for this over on the blog. So maybe don't follow what I'm doing on screen and go and check out the recipe, because there you'll have exact measurements and exactly how to make it. Again, I start by frying the meat first so that we get some nice crispy texture and some nice flavours in the sauce. Here I'm using, I guess you would call it stewing pork. It's basically chunks of pork that will cook for a long time without becoming tough. Now I'm slicing 2 onions, so once the meat is cooked, I'm going to remove it from the pan and then fry the onions until they're soft in all of those lovely meat juices. Again, this is a recipe that I've made, I don't even know how many times, because it really is one of our favourites. So I can do it pretty much with my eyes closed. In fact, this recipe is one that my husband used to make for me before we were even married, so it's been going in our family for a long time now. And I think that's one of the big secrets of making homemade food. You need to have some recipes that you can fall back on that are just really easy for you to make. So if you're new to making food from scratch, what I would suggest is that you pick a couple of recipes to start with and really master those so that you can make them without looking at a recipe, without measuring. You can do it pretty much with your eyes closed, and as soon as you've got those couple of recipes down and you know how to make them, then add another one. This will make your life so much easier when you're trying to cook from scratch. And for me this week, when I was feeling under the weather and tired and I'd been ill for so long, it was really nice to have these meals that I knew worked well and that didn't take a lot of effort to make. So now going back to this recipe, I have browned off the meat and the onions are nice and soft, so I'm adding the flavouring. So I'm adding plenty of soy sauce, and I've managed to find a soy sauce that is gluten-free, so it's pure soy that's been fermented, and I get this from an organic shop. So if you live in France and you would like a link for this online organic shop, you can look at that. I will link it in the description box below. Now in my recipe on the blog, I use sugar in this recipe, but because we are really limiting sugar as much as we can because of doing the GAPS diet for a while and realizing how important it is to limit sugar, I'm actually going to be using honey today, and it worked out really well. It did not change the flavor a huge amount, and it felt really good to be using a natural sweetener like that. I like to make sure that my meat is just covered, not quite covered, with liquid for this recipe, because we want to have quite a thick liquid. So once I've added the soy sauce and the honey, I'm just going to check to see how much liquid is in there, and then add some broth or some water just to come up to the top of the meat. This will then simmer for about 30 minutes or until the meat is falling apart tender. And when it's cooked, you can add a squeeze of lemon juice if you like. You don't have to, but it does add an extra pop of flavour, which is really good. Again, we're going to be serving this over rice for a delicious homemade meal. And now we're on to my last recipe of the day, which is chili. So you've seen me make this so many times on this channel. We love chili, and it is such an easy meal to make. I'm starting off by pressure cooking some white beans. So I'm just adding a cup of white beans and about 3 cups of water. I actually could have added more water to this. I think that would have been better because the beans were a little bit on the tough side. And once they're cooked, I'm going to take them out of the Instant Pot and then put the Instant Pot on saute mode, add a little bit of oil, and then add my meat. Now I've said this several times as well on the channel. It's that our butcher has a special offer on minced or ground beef every Wednesday. So when I'm meal planning, I always put my minced beef recipe on a Wednesday because I know that I can get it that day for a really good price, and it will be fresh and delicious. That takes some of the pressure off meal planning because I know that every Wednesday is the day that we're going to be having beef. So maybe that's something you could try too. Decide on a day that you're going to have chicken, decide on a day you're going to have beef, and maybe work your meal plan around that. That could take some of the pressure off you. Once the meat is starting to brown, I'm going to add the onions and let them cook with the meat for a few minutes until they're starting to soften. And then I can add the garlic and the rest of the seasoning. So the seasoning that I love to use for chili is plenty of cumin, plenty of smoked paprika, and a little bit of ground coriander. I also like to add some dried oregano when I have it, just for a little bit of extra flavour and greenery in there. And again, you can find a recipe for my favourite chili over on the blog, and I'll link that in the description box below. Today I am going to be adding something a little bit different because I have been going through my freezer and I realised that I had some frozen butternut puree left over. So I decided to use that up and add a bit of extra nutrition into this meal just by adding that leftover butternut puree. Now I usually only add crushed tomatoes to this recipe, but this particular day I didn't have very many of those tins left over, so I decided to use 1 tin of crushed tomatoes and 1 small tin of tomato puree. It did add so much flavour, it was really tasty. I also added in the white beans that I'd cooked, as well as a tin of red kidney beans that I had drained. Then I added some stock and some salt. And I brought it up to the boil because I had that frozen butternut squash in there and I didn't feel good about slow cooking it right off with something frozen. So I brought it up to the boil, and then I slow cooked it all day, about 8 hours on low. In the evening, I wanted to make some toppings for this chili, so I'm making some quick pickled onions, and I'm basically using the recipe that I have over on the blog for pickled carrots, but I'm just using onions instead of carrots, and again I'll link that in the description box below. It's simply apple cider vinegar, sugar and salt for the brine. I shake that up and then I add my onions directly to the jar. I think everybody's motivation for making food from scratch is different. It could be that it tastes so much better when you make it from scratch. It could be that you like to learn how to do new things. Or it could be that you have health issues that means that you can't eat processed foods. For me, it's all of those things. But we have this real issue that my boys can't eat processed foods, so even on those weeks when I'm feeling really run down, I can't skip out and get a frozen ready meal. We can't just order pizza in or get a takeaway. I have to find something that I can make for everybody that's going to be nutritious, but also quick and easy. So while these meals did involve me spending a bit of time in the kitchen, they weren't complicated because I knew them so well. And they were also really comforting because they were just our favourites. And everybody's favourites will be different. Our favourites tend to revolve around curry and Asian flavours and chili and Tex-Mex and that kind of thing. But yours might be more traditional European foods, or it could be pasta. Find what your favourite is, learn how to make it well, and keep on making it until it becomes automatic. And then you'll be well on your way to eating every meal homemade from scratch. Thank you for joining me today, friends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. I make videos every week on homemade food from scratch, allergy-friendly meal ideas, and plenty of sourdough. I'll see you next time. Bye.